You can stay here, right?
I think, do we need to talk to him? Hello, 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 test. To avoid any interruption during the forum. Hello, test, test.
Test 1, 2, 3.
And try not to point it.
Okay.
Also try not to point that one. I think we have to wait the signal.
Yeah.
I don't know why they give me this. It's the speeches.
Maybe let's read it if you want. I know, just in case I need to talk about it. If someone's not replaced by another one. Like last year, like if someone was replaced by another person. So no one informed us.
No, but this one is since the other day. That was the 90%. I would just read the person out right outside the gift. Because I don't know, maybe this will be the one.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Please be seated. We are about to begin in 5 minutes. May I kindly request everyone to please switch your mobile phones to silent mode to avoid any interruption during the forum. Thank you.
Mekong Forum 2018 will also be providing translation services from English to Thai language. So if you will be needing a translation device, please go to the registration booth for the translation device. Thank you very much.
If we can wait 5 minutes. I think let the ET give a signal if it's done.
Also, Wi-Fi services is available in this conference hall. The username and the password is 12302. Once again, the username and password is 12302 for the Wi-Fi services.
Mekong Institute is proud to host our 6th Mekong Forum 2018 with the theme Turn Around and Take Off, Speeding Up Competitiveness and Connectivity in the GMS. This year's forum draws attention to the importance of innovation and development cooperation in further advancing growth of the Greater Mekong sub-region. We will strive to answer how innovation can be harnessed, what kind of scientific incentive to promote innovation, and how development cooperation can improve connectivity of our people in the region. As in the previous year, we bring to you relevant and highly interactive session featuring a pool of experts, speakers from academics, government and private sector, as well as development cooperation agencies. Please come join us in the Mekong Forum 2018 on August 3rd in Khon Kaen, Thailand.
To Mrs. Supatra Sripatak, Chairwoman of Mekong Institute Council, Dr. Narongchai Akrasani, Chairman of Mekong Institute Steering Committee, His Excellency Mr. Zhang Guhua, Vice Governor of People's Government of Yunnan Province, People's Republic of China, Dr. Wachres Lilawat, Executive Director of Mekong Institute, our Excellencies, Honorable Speakers, distinguished guests, welcome to Mekong Forum 2018, Turnarounds and Takeoffs, Speeding Off Competitiveness and Connectivity in the Greater Mekong Sub-Region. My name is Dwight.
I am Hao Wen. We are from Mekong Institute and we are your MC today.
On behalf of Mekong Institute, we would like to extend our deepest gratitude for everyone for gracing us in this very important occasion. Let me also welcome everyone to the beautiful city and province of Kon Kin.
Of course, we would also like to thank those of you who have joined us last night for the reception dinner. I hope everyone have enjoyed the evening with good food, outstanding performance, and opportunity to expanding your networking with different participants from different countries and backgrounds.
Over the last over the last 2 decades, Mekong Institute has been working hard in promoting sustainable development in the greater Mekong sub-region. For those who are not yet familiar, Mekong Institute is an international intergovernmental organization run by the 6 governments in the GMS, including Cambodia, PR China, Lao PDR, Myanmar, Thailand, and Vietnam.
Today, we are gathered to attend one of Mekong Institute's most important events, the Mekong Forum. This forum aims to bring together opinion leaders and development practitioners to discuss the most pressing issues facing the greater Mekong sub-region.
So far, Mekong Institute has organized several Mekong Forums in the past. This year, Mekong Forum will focus on how strengthened regional cooperation can contribute in improving connectivity and competitiveness in the region.
Now let's proceed with a brief overview of what will happen today. We will formally begin the forum with the welcome remarks and the keynote speeches from our distinguished guests. Afterwards, we will have a very short coffee break followed by the first session. Session 1 will be on examining the growth momentum challenges, which will be moderated by Mr. Majuja Kumaduta, Director of Trade and Investment Facilitation Department of MI. Then there will be a lunch.
Following lunch, the second session will focus on scaling up competitiveness with innovation, which will commence at 1 p.m. Ms. Maria Teresa Medialdia, Director of MI's Agricultural Development and Commercialization Department, will moderate this panel discussion.
After a short break, Dr. Ratala Lilawa, Executive Director of Mekong Institute, will moderate Session 3 on harnessing development cooperation for stronger connectivity.
And finally, Dr. Wachres will also deliver a wrap-up, as well as discuss ways to move forward after this forum. So keeping up with our theme this year of strengthening connectivity in the region, the proceedings of today's Mekong Forum will also be live streamed on Facebook. So if you go to Facebook, just search on Mekong Institute and you can share the live stream events for today's proceedings. Also keeping up with technological advances, and that is social media. Mekong Forum 2018 has an official hashtag. It's hashtag Mekong Forum 2018. That is hashtag Mekong Forum 2018. So if you want to share or tweet anything about the proceedings today, feel free to do so, and we might be able to retweet and repost some of your posts. Howen?
So, without further ado, let us give the floor to Dr. Ratula Lilawa, Executive Director of Mekong Institute, for his welcome remarks. Let's give him a big round of applause.
Good morning, Mrs. Supatra Simaitri Pitak, Chairwoman of MI Council, Dr. Narongchai Akraseni, Chairman of the MI Steering Committee, His Excellency Mr. Sang Kaohua, Vice Governor of Yunnan Province, PR China, Dr. Somsak Jangtapun, Governor of Khon Kaen Province, Mr. Kensuke Tanaka, the OECD Development Center, our distinguished guests, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, development partners and colleagues. Good morning to you all and welcome you all to Khon Kaen, to Mekong Institute. Today's event is a landmark initiative of Mekong Institute. Since we begin to organize Mekong Forum in 2011, and this is the 6th Mekong Forum that we have been organizing. Over the years, Mekong Forum has become a major occasion for development actors in the Greater Mekong sub-region to come together, exchange ideas, and come up with collective decisions geared toward achieving the development goals and aspirations of people in the region. Beyond being an avenue for discussions and networking, Mekong Forum is MI ears, a way for us to listen to collective voices of our stakeholders in the Greater Mekong sub-region and use this to help us in crafting strategic programs, in designing capacity building initiatives that truly respond to the needs of the GMS people, and in fostering dialogue with our development partners. Cognizant of the heightening emphasis of the role of innovation today, it is truly timely and proper to bring the discussions on this subject for us who live in the GMS. Our theme for this year is turn around and take off, speeding up competitiveness and connectivity in the GMS. It's grounded on the premise that innovation, hand in hand with cooperation and collaboration, can drive competitiveness and foster increased connectivity among people and community, and in turn, drive forward a faster growth momentum and development for us in the region. We, in the Greater Mekong sub-region, have enjoyed steady growth compared to decades past. The challenge to be competitiveness remains high. The call to leverage on technology to design innovative and out-of-the-box solutions remains strong. Most of all, the need to foster increased connectivity and strengthen our collaborations is even more important. The discussions today will strive to answer how we can respond to these challenges and needs. It is my hope that we come away from today's events with more coherent understanding of what others are already doing out there, and more importantly, of what else we can do. Hopefully, we will derive ideas, insights, how we can better work together and strengthen our development partnerships and cooperation in the region. The event itself is a testament of cooperation among partners, so I wish to extend my most sincere appreciation to our co-organizers of this year's Mekong Forum. Thailand Convention and Exhibition Bureau, or TCEP, OECD Development Center, Open Development Initiative, Thai Smile Airways, and Tourism Authority of Thailand. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to our keynote speakers, Special Address Speaker, Dr. Rongchai Akraseni, His Excellency Mr. Sang Kauhua, and Mr. Kensuke Tanaka, as well as to all our session speakers and moderators. We want to thank you all for today's event and making your time to come here to join us, and we really appreciate your attendance. I'm sure that our food for thought today will give us energy to take action in the foreseeable future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wacharas. Next, may we invite the chairwoman of Mekong Institute Council and currently the Director General of Thailand International Cooperation Agency, or TICA, of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Thailand, Mrs. Supatra Sri Maitri Pitak, to deliver her opening remarks.
I think I have to turn around. Can you see me from there? Dr. Narongchai Akraseni, Chairman of the Mekong Institute Steering Committee, Dr. Somsak Jangtakul, the Governor of Khon Kaen Province, Mr. Chang Wokwa, the Governor of Yunnan Province, Excellency, distinguished speakers and guests, colleagues, partners in development, a pleasant morning to you all. On behalf of Mekong Institute and their partners, it is my great pleasure to welcome you to Mekong Forum 2018. I am very honored to stand here as the chair of the Mekong Institute Council, and with another capacity as Director General of Thailand International Cooperation Agency, or TICA. TICA is one of the institutes instrumental in Mekong Institute's establishment. MI and TICA are partners in development, sharing common goals, and complementing each other. Mekong Forum is the annual gathering of leaders and development professions and experts, serving as a milestone event of Mekong Institute. The gathering has steadily drawn a large crowd for the past few years, not just because the intense networking potentials it presents, but because it has continued to offer an avenue for an exchange of views on relevant and stimulating topics. This year's theme, the turns around and takeoffs, is the one that resonates very well with us who work in development sector. The dynamic natures of our world today puts technology at the forefront, posing a challenge for being more innovative in the way we do things. As actors in development agenda, we are asked, what out-of-the-box solutions can we offer to achieve the objective of social and economic growth? So we are going to find the answer today together. Concurrent to this is the call for us all to further synergize and harmonize our efforts. The value of cooperation frameworks cannot be discounted. In fact, we already have a number of cooperation dialogues on which we can anchor our efforts. One of these is the Mekong Economic Cooperation Strategy, or widely known as ACMEX. It was created in 2003 on the partnerships of Cambodia, PDR, Myanmar, Thailand, and Vietnam. The ACMEX build on our bilateral and regional cooperation programs. We are committed to bring about broader social progress aligned along with three goals to promote complementarity and collaboration rather than competition. Namely, seamless ACMEX to develop our transportation and infrastructure links. Next is synchronized ACMEX economies to harmonize trade and investment and encourage financial cooperation. And last, smart and sustainable ACMEX to develop our human resource capacities and promote the use of technology. This year, in fact, Thailand has proposed ACMEX Fund as a financing mechanism to enable the realization of our cooperation projects under this strategy. Besides ACMEX, we also have other cooperation frameworks that offer immense potentials and opportunities as well. Among these are the Mekong Lan-Chang Cooperation Framework, the Mekong-Japan Cooperation, Mekong Republic of Korea Cooperation, the Lower Mekong Initiative, the Mekong Ganga Cooperation, and the Greater Mekong Sub-Region Economic Cooperation Program. All of these frameworks put the Mekong region and its development at the center. There is a challenge for us to coordinate within and to make these frameworks coherent towards complementarity, not duplicity. Today's event promise to expound on how we can work together and harness our innovation spirit to fast-track regional growth and developments. With your active participation and presentations, we hope to bring home a wealth of ideas, experiences, and promising collaborations. Indeed, the occasion is an excellent opportunity to enhance our networks, but also more importantly, explore ways by which we can work more closely with each other and deliver collective leadership and actions. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Executive Director Dr. Wacharat and the Mekong Institute team. Their diligent work and tireless commitment to make this gathering possible is greatly appreciated. Last but not least, I would like to express sincere gratitude to all of you who have come to join us at the 6th Mekong Forum today. We are all partners in development, whether you are from the GMS countries, from other countries in Asia, or other parts of the globes. Our discussion today will bring to us solid ideas and creative approaches to how we can speed up and propel to greater heights the development of the GMS region. There is a saying that I like very much, and it's very well known among the development partners. It says, if you want to go fast, walk alone. But if you want to go far, walk together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Supatra. Now, to give another opening remarks, may I call on Mr. Salajot Sutas-Chudu, Director of the Domestic Mines Department of Thailand Convention and Exhibition Bureau. Let's welcome.
Good morning สวัสดีครับ Dr. ณรงค์ชัย อัครเสนานี Chairman of MI Steering Committee Mr. Chang Hua, the Vice Governor of Yunnan Province, China Mrs. Supatra Srimaitipitak, the Chairman of the Mekong Institute, Council and Director General of Thailand International Cooperation Agency, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Mr. Somsak Chantakul, Governor of Khon Kaen Province. Member of the press, ladies and gentlemen. We at the Thailand Convention and Exhibition Bureau are again honored to be play a supporting role of the Mekong Forum again for the second year in a row. Although the Bureau's core responsibility is to make Thailand a global preferred meeting and exhibition destination, we never forget to focus on making those activities to help strengthen country development. This Mekong Forum is a clear example. Khon Kaen, where we are now, is also one of the 5 regional centers of meetings and exhibition activities selected and supported by the Convention Bureau. This plan goes parallel with our commitment to promote the Eastern Economic Corridor, as well as activities related to the Thailand 4.0 development strategy. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we all realize that this year's forum takes place at a very crucial time. While recognizing the high growth potential of our region, we see more uncertainties arising around the world that will somehow affect us. And with a number of experts from inside and outside the GMS pouring their insights into this forum, I believe the Mekong countries will do just fine. Again, we are committed to supporting the development by means of meetings, conventions, and exhibitions. And I would like to thank you all for your participation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Salanroj. Now, it is my honor to introduce to you our first keynote speaker. As a Thai economist and technocrat, he is known for his continuous involvement in the economic development of Thailand and in ASEAN and APEC affairs. He had numerous appointments in the Thai government, including being an advisor to several Thai prime ministers. He was also a former Minister of Energy and Minister of Commerce, a senator, and a member of the National Legislative Assembly. He has also served as the chairman of steering committee and vice chairman of the Council of Mekong Institute. He also served as a member of the board of many Thai public institutions, including the National Economic and Social Development Board, the Board of Investment, Bank of Thailand, Securities and Exchange Commission of Thailand, and the Insurance Commission. He was also a chairman of the Export-Import Bank of Thailand. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Narongchai Akrasani to give his keynote speech. Let us give him a big warm applause.
Good morning. Good morning to all of you. I'm really pleased to be here again. Maybe this is the 6th time that I've been invited to give the keynote speech. It's a little bit embarrassing because I'm chairman of the steering committee and we make decision about who to invite to give keynote speech. It's like myself inviting myself every year. I hope you forgive me for that. Let me get my document correct. The topic, the Mekong Forum this year, is about a new development paradigm, about innovation, as the title says. I think the subject, all of us agree that the subject is appropriate, but the timing is somewhat unfortunate because it's taking place just 10 days after the dam disaster in Lao PDR, our neighbor. I was saddened, I think all of us were, by the incidents. And some question the relevance of this year's subject for some GMS countries, whether it is too much or too far. My view is that the incident raises the question about the natural resource-driven growth strategy as practiced by resource-rich countries, Lao PDR being a country like that, relying on hydropower as a natural resource for development. Maybe that is a question that we have. But if we believe that innovation-driven growth strategy is an alternative, then we should pay even more attention to the subject of this year's forum and question that development model of natural resource-driven growth strategy. So for the title of this year's Mekong Forum, Turns Around and Take Off, Speeding Up Competitiveness and Connectivity in the GMAs, I think is most appropriate based on that innovation-driven growth strategy. I say that because I think 2018 is a crucial year, the year that we see the real direction of changes. How each country, GMS countries included, manages the changes will determine the future well-being of the country and its people. The title suggests that the GMS countries should aim at taking off and should do that by enhancing competitiveness and connectivity This may be considered as a new takeoff because in the last decade and a half, the GMS countries have had a certain degree of takeoff. You can look at graphic number 1. You can see how we performed during the last 17 years. GDP in all of our countries increased many times. Of course, Thailand GDP did not increase much because we were bigger than others at the beginning of this period. Why do we have that thought? Let me share with you my views on the subject matters. I have been a student of economic development for half a century. I emphasize half a century, 50 years, longer than many of you who attend to this conference. I have seen continuous changes in economic development in all of Asian countries based on the Western way of industrialization. How an economy performs depends on how the country adopts and adapts industrialization. Even the rapid technological development in digital technology since 1990s has been considered a part of industrialization. But now, things are not the same anymore. The world is experiencing technological changes in the form referred to as disruptive technologies. Technologies that allow us a new way to do all things and to create new things. I show you this graphic number 2, and it explains the series of development that the world has gone through. When we talk about the automation, it was actually Industry 3.0. Now our Prime Minister going everywhere talking about Thailand 4.0, Industry 4.0. That what he meant was about Internet of Things and AI economy. So that is the latest development. Examples of this Internet of Things and AI economy are numerous. I think all of us, all of you are experiencing that today. Photo taking, everywhere you go, you see people using iPhone taking photo endlessly. Movie and video viewing. We can view movie and video different way. Music listening. Goods and services shopping. Transportation servicing, Uber, Grab, and so on. Accommodation using Airbnb, Lazada, all this and that. Office and space working. Vehicles with autopiloting. I have a friend who with me in Australia and operate his vehicle in Hong Kong by iPhone. Merchandise manufacturing with 3D printing. Sickness and wellness caretaking. You have a robot taking care of people. Renewable energy producing, etc., etc., etc. The disruptive technologies have come about because I emphasize of two very important developments. Exponential growth of computer power for data storage. Now, unlimited amount of data could be stored without any server. You can rely on the cloud. And analytics and data analytics. And the invention is the invention of smartphones about 10 years ago. The introduction of iPhone has enhanced the accessibility and creation of data. Thus the development of big data. I show you graphic number 3. This is very important graphic. If you look at this graphic, you will see that in the year 2007, the first iPhone came out. Then 2008, Android. Now all of us have iPhone, at least one. I have 3. And see the development, see the rise, the growth of e-commerce. Because this invention of iPhone, smartphones, create data. Wherever you go, they know where you are. So please be careful. Whatever you do, they know what you do. Whatever you buy, they know what you buy. So you can see sometimes when you turn on the phone, it tells you exactly what you are going to do. Sometimes I get very upset with that. Why do you know what I'm going to do? So from this development, machine can now learn and sense and feel and act more and more by themselves. It is the union of man and machine, the creation of humanoid, human android, and cyber and original and organic. The process referred to as singularity. I show you graphic number 4. This is singularity. Come on, please. Not coming up? You see the hand? Must be a lady hand, so beautiful. With the nail works and all that. And the machine hand. This is singularity. The union of man and machine. To the point that we don't know what is man, what is machine these days. Sophia is a famous example of that. If you have not met Sophia, search for her in your internet. You may fall in love with her. She was in Thailand a few months ago. We have now Singularity University. I have become a part of that university. This university is based in Silicon Valley in California. We talk about this singularity. We preach the utilization of singularity. The machines and devices have become more and more intelligent, capable of doing and sensing, thus referred to as artificial intelligence, AI. It can also mean augmented intelligence, AI also, when man is equipped with machines and devices. Thus, what we have, the world has now entered into AI economy. I show you graphic number 5. This is AI economy. Facial recognition, works of Alexa, Amazon, Watson of IBM. I belong to AIA Life Insurance. Now we use Watson to process our claims and all. Tesla, this vehicle that I mentioned before, friend of mine owns it, parked in Hong Kong, can be operated from Australia. Online game, and this Tencent of China, etc., etc. So what do these all mean for mankind, for the GMS? Are we going to be taken over by machine? No more mankind? The evidences have already shown that disruptive technology have had a real cost reduction effect. Goods and services can be made more available, affordable, also acceptable. Actually, it is an ongoing process of dematerialization, demonetization, and democratization. You use less material, you use less money, and it's available to anybody. New singer these days, they don't need to be member of Grammy or R&A's, they can promote themselves and make a living using YouTube. That's what is called democratization of technology. So as we are all aiming at sustainable development goals, SDGs, which are to make the world better socially, ecologically, and spiritually, we should now consider seriously and constructively the power of disruptive technology. As the title says, we should turn around and look at our development with the perspective of these technologies and to consider the potential of a takeoff or another takeoff. How do we attempt at taking off? This forum makes 2 propositions about taking off: connectivity and competitiveness. In the areas of connectivity, we have over the last decade or so been working on the hardware and software sides. emphasizing physical and institutional aspects of connectivity. We should continue to do that. We then should emphasize two very important infrastructure for the new economy. I showed you the graphic number 6. This is the this one is about the infrastructure connectivity, but the new one is about digital infrastructure and energy infrastructure connectivity. That's graphic number 7. I think we missed one, but never mind, sorry. It pictures about the infrastructure that we have. Now we need digital infrastructure because it is basic to AI economy. And energy infrastructure is entering a period of real revolution. I emphasize real revolution. Whereas renewable energy is increasingly competitive with the fossil-based energy. I was Minister of Energy in 2014. The time that I became a minister and the time that I left, the cost of solar energy production dropped by almost 50% within 1 year. We used to subsidize solar energy. Now we don't do it anymore. Of course, the contract that we have, we continue. Now we can invest in solar energy for 1 megawatt, costing less than coal or gas power in the factory. It's everywhere now. This is solar. And solar and wind cost is also coming. Not as fast as solar, but it's coming down. If you think of it, it's very natural. The solar should be the source of power. That's what nature gives us. Power of the sun and therefore the power. Actually, nature has never given us that water should be the source of power. Water should be for cooling, not for heating. So maybe we made a mistake about this hydropower. Maybe. Maybe our Lao PDR friends reconsidered about this being battery of Asia. Yes, you can, but not by water, I think. Maybe. Just a thought. So for both of these areas of infrastructure, GMS countries should coordinate in their development to enhance their utilization. Now on competitiveness. Competitiveness is about how people and enterprises perform in the marketplace. The country's competitiveness ranking is the result of that performance. In the AI economy, competitiveness is determined by the adoption and the progressive invention of AI. China, with these 2 provinces that we have as our member, Yunnan and Guangxi, members of GMS, China has demonstrated this very well. Other GMS countries are also entering the era of AI economy at different degrees. The AI economy involves human resource development and the appreciation of modern disruptive technologies. The aim is to make human resources and their undertaking smart, meaning capable of doing things and solving problems with the use of AI. These undertakings include, for example, I showed you the graphic, next graphic, about smart economy, smart undertakings, smart entrepreneurs, SME startup, smart agriculture, smart tourism, not smart tourists, smart tourism. A lot of tourists are not smart. Smart medical services, smart education. Vietnam is very good at smart education. I was in Vietnam and available anywhere, education online. Smart cities, you're talking about smart cities, trying to be, our governor is here. Governor is smart, but the city may not be smart yet. Smart security, it's very important, to have security that we can rely on AI. We can detect facial detection, and so on, etc., etc. Actually, there's endless application of AI technology to make our living very smart. The list of undertaking, as I said, designated smart, should be made as long as possible, subject, of course, to the country potential. Now, an important point to be made is that for a country that has not gone far in the industrial economy, it is easier to adopt the AI economy. Such a country does not need to unlearn in order to learn. Among the GMS countries, Thailand is facing with the transition cost of moving from industrial economy to AI economy. That's very difficult for us, compared with, for example, Vietnam. My granddaughter, 11 years old, she visited Vietnam, Da Nang and all, came back and said, Wi-Fi in Vietnam much better than Thailand, Grandpa. I feel very embarrassed about that. Because for Thailand, it's not only that we have to learn, but also to unlearn, and then to relearn, which has shown to be a very challenging task. I think the classic case we have, let me share this with you. The example is the right to use frequency, radio frequency, radio wave. What is that? Is that utility or luxury? We have treated the use of frequency in the form of phones and audio, video, media, and so on as luxury, meaning that anybody who has the right will make a lot of money, and therefore we have to charge commission fee, concession fee very high. That's how we have treated this frequency in the past. When we do that, the concessionaire translate the fee into our fee. So whatever the government thinks that they can make so much money, actually it's our money. It's not the company's money. That's market capitalism. They have to make profit. So in the AI economy, frequency should be treated as utility. I think this is a regulatory issue. See, for example, in the case of Thailand, we treat power as utility. So the regulator requires that concessionaire charges the lowest price. Whoever charges the lowest price get concession. But in the frequency regulation, whoever pay the highest price get concession. That is opposite. And if we have already done that in the past, if companies have paid high fee in the past, now when government wants to issue new licenses, they have to also charge high fees. We are witnessing the collapsing, the bankruptcy of media companies, television, digital television, who have been given licenses at high cost, begging government to please help. What would the government do? You look at the new frequency auction at high price, nobody went in. Nobody came. So, and I have another slide, I think skip one slide, about this digital economy. The new ones not having to face this dilemma. They can do better. In fact, in another slide that shows the capacity of mobile loading speed in Thailand and Myanmar. It's faster in Myanmar than in Thailand. And we think that we are more advanced than Myanmar. No, not in that category. So I think for us, in order to really move in this AI economy, considering it for a means of new taking off, we should consider this regulatory regime. I would like to close by saying that MI has been following the development of modern technology very closely. In fact, MI organized the Mekong Forum in 2015 on this subject. At that time was not as hot as today. I mean the subject, not the weather. Programs and activities at MI are moving towards the application of modern and disruptive technology. So MI is ready to work with the GMS countries in the development of human resources to be capable of making the best use of AI to help the countries develop the AI economy. So for you, the takeaway that I would like you to consider will be actually two things. Number one, commit yourself to solar power. You will never go wrong. That is definitely going to be the best source of power generation. And with that power, you can use it to power AI economy. And if we do the regulatory regime for AI economy properly, we can do this new takeoff. That means we turn around to look at these two things and use them for our taking off. Thank you very much for your attention, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Dr. Narunchai, for the most inspiring speech. Our next keynote speaker currently serves as the Vice Governor of the People's Government of Yunnan Province of PR China. Prior to that, he worked in the Jiangsu Province as Deputy Party Secretary of Suzhou Municipality, Mayor and later the Party Secretary of Kunshan City, Mayor of Nantong Municipality, and Party Secretary of Xuzhou Municipality. From this, our next keynote speaker has accumulated abundant experience in the areas of foreign affairs, commerce, economic zone management, enterprise development, and youth affairs. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome His Excellency Mr. Zhang Guohua.
尊敬的张达拉坤副院先生，尊敬的湄公学院的各位理事、各位会员、各位朋友、女士们、先生们，大家上午好。
Your Excellency, Mr. Somsa, Governor of Konggan, members of Mekong Institute Council, ladies and gentlemen, friends, good morning.
很高兴来到风光秀美、充满活力的孔径，与各位嘉宾和朋友共同出席2018湄公论坛。我今天要发言的题目是提升区域竞争力，携手共创美好未来。
It is my great pleasure to join you here in this beautiful, attractive, and vibrant province of Konggan in the 2018 Mekong Forum. The title of my speech today is Promoting Competitiveness in the Region for a Bright Future.
南美六国一江相连，人文相通，经济互补，是好邻居、好朋友、好伙伴，也是亚洲乃至世界经济发展最具活力的区域之一。多年来，中国与湄公河国家顺应世界和平发展、合作共赢的潮流，不做高大上的清单管，而做接地气的推土机，发扬睦邻友好的传统，以区域合作机制为平台，以实施具体的项目为扎手，为合作共识转化为实际行动，不但深化各领域的互利合作，取得了丰硕的成果，增强了各国的竞争实力，为推动南美区域持续和平、繁荣、稳定发展做出了积极的贡献。合作的成果实实在在地惠及了各国人民。
Nurtured by the same river and blessed with affinity and complementary economies, our 6 Lanta Mekong countries are good neighbors, good friends, and good partners in the most dynamic region in Asia and beyond. Over the years, China and its partners in the Mekong region have followed the global trend of peaceful development and cooperation for a win-win situation. Our cooperation is action-driven like a bulldozer instead of simply talking the talk. We make full use of the platforms built for regional cooperation and roll up our sleeves to carry out projects. We have translated consensus into concrete actions to continue our efforts to deepen mutually beneficial cooperation. By doing this, our cooperation has generated fruitful results, strengthened all countries' competitiveness, and made contribution for peace, prosperity, and stable development in the region.
女士们、先生们、朋友们，南美流域国家历来高度重视提升国家竞争力水平，并积极施策。世界经济论坛2017到2018年全球竞争力报告显示，南美各国竞争力排名均有一定的进步，但仍然较为靠后。突出表现在关键的基础设施供给还不足，高素质、高技能的人才和劳动力的供给还有短缺，创新成果转化率还比较低，政府效率和效能还仍需进一步提高等方面。
Ladies, gentlemen, and friends, it is recognized that all governments of Latam Mekong region have attached great importance to improving national competitiveness and has taken positive measures. The Global Competitiveness Report 2017 to 2018 by the World Economic Forum indicates that Latam Mekong countries moved up in competitiveness ranking, but the positions are still behind. We commonly face the challenges that the supply of infrastructure, especially the critical ones, are insufficient. The high quality and high-skilled labor is inadequate. Innovation transforming rate is still low, and government efficiency and performance need to be improved.
本次论坛聚焦转向与腾飞，加快提升湄公河区域竞争力和互联互通水平，找准了南美流域国家发展进程中亟待解决的问题。为了这个论坛主题，我在这里提4点建议供大家参考。
Mekong Forum this year is themed Turnarounds and Takeoffs, Speeding Up Competitiveness and Connectivity in the GMS. I believe it defines the bottlenecks to be tackled by the Latam Mekong countries in their development. In this connection, I would like to propose 4 recommendations for your reference.
第一，坚持开放发展，不但提升经济发展的质量。
Firstly, open development to improve the quality of economy.
中国国家主席习近平指出，中国开放的大门不会关闭，这会一开一大。近年来，湄公河国家经济持续高速增长，主要得益于打开国门搞建设。在国际竞争环境日益激烈的背景下，随着“一带一路”稳步推进，我们应秉持开放发展理念，提高创新创业能力，最大限度地激发市场的活力，做大共同的利益蛋糕，努力提升区域内经济发展的质量。
Chinese President Xi Jinping declared to the world that China would never shut its door of opening. On the contrary, China's opening up will go deeper. In recent years, Latam Mekong countries have realized a rapid economic growth by implementing opening up policy. In an increasingly fierce environment of global competition and with the Belt and Road Initiative gathering momentum, we should stick to open development, improve the capacity for innovation and entrepreneurship, and we hope that we can inject vitality into the market to make a larger cake of common interest and improve the quality of economy.
第二，坚持联动发展，不但提升互联互通水平。
Secondly, synchronized development to lift the level of our connectivity.
实践证明，基础设施互联互通是区域合作的优先领域。我们应继续加强协调配合，更加注重软环境的建设，加快提升区域综合交通基础设施的互联互通水平，推进实施大湄公河便利货物及人员跨境运输的协定，早期收获备忘录，更好地促进区域内生产要素高效便捷流动。
Empirical evidence has shown that connectivity would be always the priority area of cooperation. We should continue to strengthen coordination and cooperation, and the governments should pay more attention to improve the institutional environment to enable acceleration of regional comprehensive transport infrastructure development. We should work together to implement the MOU of early harvest of the GMS CBTA so as to promote factors flowing in a more efficient and convenient manner.
第三，坚持创新发展，不断提升人力资源的开发活力。
Thirdly, innovative development to stimulate the human resource development.
湄公学院作为南美国家唯一的政府间人力资源开发和培训的机构，有效弥补了区域合作项目执行人才缺口的问题。我们应携起手来，加大对学院建设和发展的支持力度，将湄公学院平台做大做强，为区域一体化进程提供强有力的人才保障和智力支持。
As the only international intergovernmental human resources development and training organization in this region, Mekong Institute satisfies the human resource demand of regional cooperation projects execution. We hope that we can work together to invest more resources to build MI into a stronger and more capable platform to guarantee intellectual supports for regional economic integration.
第四，坚持包容发展，推动区域合作共赢共利。
Fourthly, inclusive development for promoting regional win-win cooperation.
过去几年，南美六国围绕包容发展进行了激进的探索，达成了许多共识。我们应把包容共享理念融入企业发展的进程，深入推进一体化建设，积极拓展合作领域，充实内容，巩固友谊，增进互信，让人人拥有机遇，享有成果，有更加广泛的惠及企业人民。
Over the past years, the Lantau Mekong countries have engaged in the exploration of inclusive development and have reached a lot of consensus. We should integrate the ideal of inclusive development into regional cooperation to accelerate the economic integration and expand areas for cooperation. We should work together to consolidate friendship and enhance mutual trust. And our hope is that every people have the chance to embrace opportunity. The fruits will be enjoyed and benefited to a wider range of the people in the region.
女士们、先生们、朋友们，实现南美六国更大的发展，需要各国脚踏实地的拿出行动。让我们继续秉持开放、包容、和谐发展的合作理念，行稳致远，继续走好南美区域合作之路。全力以赴提升区域的竞争实力和互联互通的水平，共同谱写南美国家命运共同体建设的美好未来。
Ladies, gentlemen, friends, the greater development of 6 Lantau Mekong countries require us to put concrete actions. So let us continue to uphold the spirit of openness, inclusiveness, and harmonious development, and be committed on the path of regional cooperation to improve our competitiveness and connectivity. And we hope that we can work together to write a new chapter of building a community of shared future for Lantau Mekong countries.
最后，祝各位朋友身体健康，万事如意。
Finally, I wish all of you good health and the best of everything.
谢谢大家。
Thank you.
Thank you very much, His Excellency Jia Guhua. Now, we proceed to a special address to be delivered by Mr. Kenzuke Tanaka. Mr. Tanaka is currently the head of the Asia Desk of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or OECD Development Center. One of his key works is managing some of OECD's publications, including the Economic Outlook for Southeast Asia, China, and India. which includes assessment of the macroeconomic situation and regional integration process, as well as an analysis of key structural policy challenges in the region. Please give a warm welcome to Mr. Kenzuke Tanaka.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and also distinguished guests. Firstly, I'd like to thank the Mekong Institute, in particular Executive Director Vachalas, for this excellent opportunity, and we are pleased to share our views today with you. And the OECD is a sort of Paris-based international organization and provide policy analysis suggestion for policymakers. And I hope our insights and view build a good base and a background for the further discussion today. And my presentation is based on our regional economic outlook, so-called economic outlook for Southeast Asia and China and India. And if you're interested in, I think you can also get a copy of this publication in the conference package, or maybe at the reception. We release this economic outlook twice a year, and then actually the update of this outlook was released 2 weeks ago in Paris. So in this sense, we are happy to provide a fresh information today. And next slide, please. Okay. Today I'd like to touch on two issues. One is economic outlook and risks. Especially, I would like to touch on the 5-6 key economic trends, and some of them already touched and mentioned in the previous keynote speakers. And then next, I would like to touch on key policy challenges, especially focusing on competitiveness and also the connectivity. Especially the structure policy, I'd like to touch on infrastructure, FDI, human capital, energy, digitalization, innovation, SME, agriculture, tourism, bit by bit. I think these are perhaps a key engine, a key element for the growth in the region. Next slide, please. And firstly, growth prospect. As you can see, here is the sort of the average growth rate this year and next year, ASEAN average, and also Mekong sub-region average. We think that the growth in the region will be steady in this year and next year, and 5.3% this year and 5.3% among ASEAN next year. But when it comes to the growth momentum of the Mekong region, and which includes China, a growth rate is even stronger, 6.6 this year and 6.3%. As you can see, the other region of the growth momentum, for instance, Latin America and Africa, or even OECD economies, growth rate is much slower. So I would say emerging Asia, especially in the Mekong region, is still an engine of the growth all over the world. Next slide, please. So here is a bit of the detail. And as you can see, among ASEAN 5 economies, we think that Vietnam will lead the growth in the region, and we think that 6.9% this year, and next year is still 6.6%. Private consumption and also the business sentiment in Vietnam contribute to the growth strongly. And Thailand, we think that growth will return to the 4.0% thanks to the consumption and export. When it comes to the CLM country, Cambodia and Laos and Myanmar, grow stronger, we think that it's even stronger. It's close to 7% this year and next year. It's mainly due to the infrastructure and construction activity, to some extent tourism, and some country FDI. So these are, China, we think that growth momentum is also stronger at 6.7% this year. Household consumption is strong, and that's actually the big pictures we think for the region. Next slide, please. So let me touch on the sort of what is the engine of the growth and what is the growth trend. And first keyword is actually the domestic demand. Maybe when you ask the growth momentum and growth model in the late 1980s or 1990s, most of the emerging Asian countries take the sort of export-led growth. But now the engine of growth is slightly changing to the domestic demand. This is a contribution to growth of real GDP growth at some of the selected economies. As you can see, blue part, investment, private consumption are steady for the next 3 years. Next slide, please. And next trend I wanted to share with you is export. export is somehow still an important element of the growth, but it's somehow weakening recently. This is to some extent the sort of the tension, sort of a trade tension or tariff increase, and also so these activities somehow affect the business sentiment of the emerging Asia. I will touch on this point later on. Next slide, please. And some of the optimism appeared in the capital market has also softened. And if you look at the left-hand side, this is the stock indexes, and especially most of the Mekong region countries also sort of recorded a relatively negative increase of the stock market. This is sort of a leading indicators. So to some extent, it's affect relatively weaker business sentiment. And if you look at other indicators like credit swap, we can slightly see still I think the level is relatively low, but we see some of the increasing trend of the sort of the risks. Next slide, please. When it comes to inflationary trend, I think the overall the region are facing increasing trend of the inflation. This is due to oil price increase and also some of the key commodities. I think the increase is notable, for instance, in the case of Philippines and also the Laos, and in the case of Philippines or some countries, I would say tax reform affected to some extent the commodity price and also the beverage and food price increase. But I think at the moment, I think the level of the increase is, I would say, for some country, I think it's relatively high. So country in the region need to be carefully monitored. But so far, I think the central bank somehow managed this inflation pressure well. Next slide, please. So monetary stance, this is a very interesting, I think, situation at the moment, because you can see in the last 2000, like, let's say, the last year until 2007 October, most of the Southeastern country relatively comfortable with relatively low interest rate. But after that, now currently most of the countries are interest rate hike stance. This is to some extent related to the sort of inflation pressure and also some of the domestic reason, for instance, to strengthen the growth momentum. At the same time, I would say countries are facing the capital outflow pressure related to the interest rate hike of the US and so on. So therefore, the interesting situation now is most of the emerging countries are now raising interest rate at the same time providing liquidity to the market. In the case of the Mekong region, the situation is slightly different. I would say partly relatively high level of the dollarization. And that's, I think, the somehow sort of slightly changed the nature of the monetary policy. And next slide, please. And also another issues maybe the credit growth. And I think especially these are relatively strong for some country like Cambodia, for instance, also Laos and Myanmar are relatively steady. So monetary authority need to also carefully monitor this. But when it comes to the non-performing loan, I think the most of the emerging countries are relatively in a good shape. Next slide, please. So I think in this report, I like to touch on three risks. Some of them are downside and some of them are upside. One is the rising interest rate, especially in the US. Next slide, please. Here, this table is a sort of the summary of the central bank policy changes. So as you can see, now the central bank is facing the challenge how to balance between the domestic growth and the domestic economic growth plus the sort of financial market stability. So as I mentioned, so the most of the Southeastern countries now provided interest rate hike, at the moment providing a liquidity. This is a very interesting situation. And also some of the countries are facing the relatively big amount of the depreciation pressures. So I think and at the same time, inflation pressure is increasing. So now I think the country in the region are facing, especially how to conduct the monetary policy, especially in the case of the Mekong region, relatively high level of dollarization, and also the sort of the relatively weak financial markets, and also the increasing credit to growth. I think these are the sort of the moments that the country of the monetary authority need to be carefully monitored. Next slide, please. And another issue is actually increasing the debt of some of the emerging Asian countries. I think this also perhaps if the interest rate hike is progressing in the US, and then the outflow pressure exists, and also domestically the borrowing cost increase might be affect to some extent to the domestic demand of the growth. Next slide, please. Another challenge I wanted to touch on the infrastructure. Infrastructure I will also touch on later on, but this is the infrastructure related to the near term. And this is the difference between the actual expenditure and also expenditure plan. If you make this table, let's say 10 years or 20 years ago, the gap between plan and implementation was huge, and this actually affects the negative impact of the growth. But now recently, if you look at these two numbers, actually most of the emerging Asian countries, actually the difference is very close, except for Thailand. But Thailand, I heard that actually the government will conduct a large amount of the expenditure this year, which was planned last year. So I think overall, I think the gap is very small. So we think that in this report, the infrastructure is one of the upside risk for the growth. Next slide, please. Another issue is trade. As I mentioned, that there are some uncertainty in the market related to the trade tensions and also the interest rate hike, also sort of that tariff hike of some of the countries. So this actually affects the relatively weaker business sentiment. But I think in this report, we think that the region, let's say, still has like 5-6% growth. I think the country in the region can fully make use of this strong domestic growth momentum to strengthen the export. One issue is actually the strengthen the regional integration within the Mekong region and also the ASEAN and also the Asia. But if you look at, for instance, intra-regional tariff of ASEAN, it's decreasing for the last 10 years. Now, I think among, I would say, the ASEAN 6 countries, it's close to zero. But there are still certain number of non-tariff measures. This probably might be a room to reduce the non-tariff measures and then to strengthen the trade. Next slide, please. So here is a sort of the big picture of our sort of our assessment of the region related to the growth momentum, growth policy challenges, and including also downside risks and upside risks. Now I'd like to touch on the policy challenges, especially focus on the competitiveness and the connectivity part. And firstly, infrastructure. Next slide, please. Infrastructure, I think in general, we think that infrastructure is one of the growth momentum in the region. And as you can see already in the GMS region, and there are plenty of infrastructure projects is already planned and proposed toward 2020. And next slide, please. But the challenge will be remained two elements. Well, first one is access, and secondly, quality. And in terms of access, we can see in a various part, for instance, like firstly the water, and compare with the world average, I think some of the Mekong region country are relatively lower, and also the same things happen to the access to electricity. In terms of access, I would say country in the region still has a lot to do. Next slide, please. But then in terms of the policy issues, I would like to touch on the 3-4 points. And the first one is the more comprehensive perspective on infrastructure. In the past, some of the projects were assessed by mainly the financial feasibility, for instance, net present value is positive or not. But the country in the region need to more focus on the external factors or externalities, I would say, social and environment impact as well. And another point we wanted to touch on the infrastructure financing. In general, we think that the country in the region has a sort of room to broaden the financing option, even for the public and also the private one. Next slide, please. For instance, there are plenty of options, even in a tax. For instance, fuel tax and carbon tax, and there are plenty of ways to sort of introduce a new tax system to afford the infrastructure financing, and also the market-based infrastructure. For instance, the infrastructure bond amount is increasing from 2000, but compared with Europe and OECD economies, amount is still very limited. And when it comes to PPP, of course, PPP has a lot of potential, but still, I think most of the emerging Asian countries, it's not easy to implement in a various sense. So I think the not only the private participation in general, broadening financial option is still important in the region. So next slide, please. Next issues I wanted to talk. Maybe please go back to the two slides. Sorry, could you go back to the, yeah, okay, and one more. Okay. Next point I wanted to touch on the building up of the local government capacity to implement infrastructure investment. And then can you go to the next? Yes, okay. This is the case of Vietnam, and you can see the huge disparity in terms of the access in the transportation infrastructure in the urban area and rural area. Similar kind of situation will also happen to most of the emerging, Mekong region countries. How to actually strengthen the capacity of local government to implement the infrastructure, including the responsibility and so on, is another challenge. And please go back to the another previous slide, please. Okay. A final point I wanted to touch on the importance and well-coordinated development strategies and also the infrastructure planning. Most of the, I would say, Mekong region and Southeast Asia country has so-called like 5-year plan, or in term, sort of a 5-year relatively medium-term plan. But on the other hand, infrastructure plan are sometimes not well coordinated with a national medium-term plan. So therefore, there are some infrastructure projects are conducted in an efficient way. So I think this sort of coordination between the development strategy and infrastructure plan would be also the important element for the infrastructure more effective. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay. Next is FDI. And in general, FDI is very strong in most of the emerging Asian countries, especially when it comes to Cambodia and Laos and Myanmar. FDI trend is still very stable and strong. And this is from the various reasons that to some extent it's related to the cheap labor cost and also and so on. But next slide, please. But when it comes to the FDI regulatory environment, this is actually OECD FDI regulatory distributed indexes. Most of the emerging Asian countries are still relatively higher compared with OECD average. So country in the region still has a lot of room to have the open FDI policy to attract FDI more. Next slide, please. Another issue is the human capital development. This is also another important element for the engine. Sorry, can you go back to the previous slide? Okay. Another important element. This is again the OECD indicators, so-called PISA. This is the indicators of education mainly focus on the quality of education. Of course, you know, in terms of access of education, Mekong region country actually achieved quite well for the last 10-20 years. But the next challenge is actually the quality of education. They compare with OECD average, like mathematics and reading and science, all scores I would say, of course, not all the ASEAN countries are not a member of the PISA, but in general, I think lagging behind. Especially, you know, the science and mathematics, these skills are important for the skilled laborers or some of the digitalization and industrialization of future. So I think education system, including quality of curriculum and teachers' education, need to be strengthened. Next slide, please. And fourth challenge I wanted to touch on is energy, and especially renewable energy. I think some of them already touched on, especially in a keynote speech, but I basically agree that there is a lot of room to strengthen the renewable energy in the region. At the moment, hydropower is, I mean, in terms of the capacity of renewable energy, I think it's increasing trend for the last, let's say, 5 years. But most of the renewable energy are basically hydropower, and also some of the selected countries, like solar, wind, and other renewable energy are quite untouched. I think, I mean, some of them mentioned about the importance of solar, but I totally agree with that. I think a country in the region still have a lot of room room to strengthen the renewable energy, especially in the solar or windows or any, including hydropower. Next slide, please. And here is a greenfield FDI inflows. This is a bit messy, but if you can see that if the country who receives so many arrows is somehow well receives a greenfield FDI. And the challenge is now at mostly in the region, India, China, Indonesia to some extent are dominated in terms of the destination of greenfield FDI in the renewable energy. I think the Mekong region still has a lot of room to strengthen to invite greenfield FDI for the further growth momentum. Next slide, please. And also for the policy side, the renewable policy, basically in emerging Asia are very much focused on the feed-in tariff. But feed-in tariff is not necessarily actually easy policy to implement. But compared with OECD economies, for instance, carbon pricing and so on, other policies are quite unused. So I think the policymaker in the region also think about the broaden the policy option to encourage the renewable energy as well. Next slide, please. Another issue is the digitalization. Also, this was touched in the previous keynote speakers, but I like to complement some of the issues. And here is the use of the digitalization from 2000 and 2016 of the emerging Asian country. As you can see, if, most of the countries increased more than double or 3 times for the last 15 years. This is an enormous change, especially in such a short period, in 10, 15 years. And the second issues I wanted to touch on the disparities. For instance, Singapore, Malaysia, relatively it's already like 80% and 90%. At the moment, for instance, Laos still 20%. So I think that there is a huge disparity in the region. This is this might be a challenge when it comes to harmonization of digitalization and also in the future. And also, I would say level of the digitalization is to some extent related to the development and growth level, but it's not always the case. For instance, the development, digitalization level of Indonesia is lower than Vietnam, for instance. So this means that still there is a lot of room for the government to encourage the digitalization. Next slide, please. And this is the e-commerce. Actually, e-commerce will be estimated, it's also widely and quickly used and growth in the region. And by 2021, it's estimated that the region will account for US dollar 200 billion in e-commerce revenue. This is like around 40% of the global trade. So e-commerce is actually also still will be an importance of the growth in the region. Next slide, please. However, I would say if you look at the productivity level, this is actually the farm level data analysis of the some of the countries in the region, and we compare firm with ICT and firm without ICT. And 100% is a critical point. So which means that most of the firms with ICT use increase the productivity. But to what extent the country enjoys the productivity gains will be different by country. For instance, Vietnam, Indonesia, Myanmar are relatively better than other countries. So I think this is also related to education or also the mentality of the manager. For instance, some of the manager of the firm, SME, doesn't allow their staff to send to the ICT training because of the near-term productivity loss. But actually, this is not a good policy in the long run. So these kind of issues also need to be discussed in the context of how to use the digitalization more effectively. Next slide, please. And also, this is an example of the OECD economies, perhaps, but more or less the same things could be applied to the emerging Asian economies. But what kind of ICT technology will be used for the firms? But surprisingly, even for the OECD economies, a broadband website, these technologies are widely used. But on the other hand, ERM or cloud or supply chain management or sort of a big data in terms of advanced ICT skills are not widely used. So the challenge of ICT is how the firm can more effectively use the high or relatively advanced ICT technology and tool will be also a challenge. This is again, it's related to human capital development as well. Next slide, please. And this is a rough correlation we checked from the level of the digitalization and also the trade policy. We use the trade restrictiveness indexes, and we can see the negative correlation. So basically, we think that open trade policy is good for the strengthen digitalization. We also use the FDI restrictiveness indexes. We can get the similar results. So which means that open trade and FDI policies is basically benefit for the digitalization. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay. Another things I wanted to touch on is issues related to agriculture. Agriculture is still also very important element for the growth in the region. And recently, the employment is relatively weakening. So I think this is maybe to some extent progress of the modernization of the agriculture sector. And also, to some extent, the young generation are not attracted by the agriculture sector. I think the enhanced productivity and also effective use of the modern technology and digitalization would be also key for the agriculture development. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, finally, I'd like to touch on tourism. Tourism is also still very important. Sorry, go back to, okay, thank you very much. Still important engine of the growth. I would say most of the countries, I think tourism is still relatively robust. And, but however, the challenge of the tourism in the region, we think, is that most of the countries are now focusing on the eco-tourism or green tourism. This is one of the good strategy, we think. But at the same time, the green eco-tourism is relatively low value added sort of the sectors. I think how to enhance the sort of the or put value added of the tourism sector is actually the challenge in the region. So that's more, it's a sort of the relatively quick to touch on key policy challenges, but I hope that some of the topics will be discussed further for the following session of this forum. So I hope this will be a good sort of the background information for the discussion this afternoon. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tanaka, for the very informative speech. Now it's time for coffee break and networking. We will have a short coffee break outside of this hall, but please return to this conference room before 10:50. So we can continue with our forum. And during the coffee break, please proceed to our registration table to obtain the lunch coupon.
Yeah, and also for our
distinguished panelists and speakers, may we invite you to go on stage for a group photo. And thank you very much and enjoy your coffee break, everyone.
Hello? 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 Mic check. Hello? Once again, we would like to invite the speakers and panelists to please go on stage for a group photo.
Mekong Institute is proud to host our 6th Mekong Forum 2018 with the theme Turn Around and Take Off, Speeding Up Competitiveness and Connectivity in the GMS. This year's forum draws attention to the importance of innovation and development cooperation in further advancing growth of the Greater Mekong sub-region. We will strive to answer how innovation can be harnessed, what kind of strategic policy and incentive to promote innovation, and how development cooperation can improve connectivity of our people in the region. As in the previous year, we bring to you relevant and highly interactive session featuring a pool of experts, speakers from academics, government and private sector, as well as development cooperation agencies. Please come join us in the Mekong Forum 2018 on